the relation between Hinduism and Buddhism, they completely misunderstand. First of all, Buddhism is not really a different religion. The Buddha never defined himself as a religion founder. He founded one particular sect, one sampradaya, one organization, one monastic network, and that's it. And what he pursued was liberation, which existed all around him. He had been the pupil of two Sankhya teachers. In fact, he starts his career with these 4 meetings, one of whom is a sadhu. So clearly there were already people pursuing liberation and getting relatively far in it. So he steps in the footsteps of the earlier Buddhas. That's in fact what he says very explicitly. So it's not really 2 religions. Then what happens with Buddhism is that there was some polemic against it, like by Shankara, which is not at all to say that Shankara destroyed Buddhist temples or anything. No, he just gave his idea, and the other side gave their idea. But yes, you see, at some point, Buddhism fell in disfavor with the masses. Buddhism only really means Buddhist monasteries. You see, lay disciples are not really committed to Buddhism. You see, even now, the neo-Buddhists, the Ambedkarites, often, as sociologists have found, have a house altar with the statue of the Buddha and a picture of Ambedkar, but often also other Hindu gods. So that hasn't disappeared, and so that's the history of Buddhism throughout. Like, for example, in Japan you have all these temples for Saraswati, Benzai Ten, and other Vedic gods have been transported by no one else except Buddhist monks all the way to Japan. Or for instance, in Thailand you have quite a few worship centers for Brahma. And indeed, you see in the story of the Buddha, it is Indra and Brahma who ask him to start teaching rather than keep it for himself. So it's not really so different. But at some points, you see, Buddhism fell into disfavor. There were no Buddhists anymore to serve Buddhist temples. And by the way, secularists also show their superficiality to call these stupas. A stupa is something else than a temple. A stupa is like an artificial hill, with a corpse in it, or at least a relic like a tooth of the Buddha or so. And then there are monasteries, which are another thing again. Anyway, so sometimes you see these temples fall empty. And what is then often done is that the worship is continued, but not so much for the Buddha anymore. Or for a Buddha statue that is given some, embellishments and so on, so that it's not really a Buddha anymore. Like in Tamil Nadu last year, there was a court case over a local temple that had been built around a Buddha that had been found in the field, and that Buddha statue was broken, and they had pasted together, but it looked a bit funny, you see, and so the name in Tamil referred to that clumsy look. And that object was worshipped by the local villagers. Now that's a very typical Hindu thing to do.
Yes.
You find something sacred and you start worshipping it. I had a friend who did these diggings in Bastar, a tribal region, and so you see the big white scholars. They had local porters, just like in the colonial age, and so when they dug up murti that had been found there, their porters started worshipping the murti. You see, that's the Hindu thing to do. And so this Buddha, non-Buddha, at any rate, some local Buddhists took it to court. They said, we want this. Well, you see, but you had it already. You could perfectly go there and worship the Buddha if that's what you want. And then the court decided, you see, Tamil anti-Hindu decided, no, this must be off limits. You can't worship this except if you give it back to the Buddhists and they do what
Their
they
own
think
thing.
is necessary. Which goes against the Places of Worship Act of 1991,
Right.
which freezes all places of worship except for Ayodhya as they were in 1947. So I don't know now what is going to come of it. But at any rate, it illustrates one aspect of the place of Buddhism within Hinduism. Now, in 1194, when the Muslim invaders destroy all the Buddhist establishments and kill all the Buddhists, it's really the end of Buddhism. Because, you see, Hinduism is passed on from father to son in the, the whole Brahmin establishment is very much in the family, or sons are exchanged to be, educated by a colleague. But in the case of Buddhism, it's these monasteries or nothing. And so Buddhism disappears, but these Buddhist establishments often remain.
Right.
Like the Mahabodhi temple was not destroyed. And so it is Shaivite monks who take care of it. And so Buddhists ought to give some gratitude to those people. And so now it is again used for Buddhist worship, even though the committee constituted to manage the place is still 5 Hindus to 4 Buddhists, as they say. I mean, I would say 9 Hindus, of whom 4 are Buddhists.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
But so at any rate, there's no case of Hindus going to destroy Buddhist temples the way that had been done with Shaiva temples and so on. That's pure projection. And at the time, in the 90s, Sitaram Goel challenged the eminent historians. Okay. In fact, it's in an incident where some secularist historian had said, yeah, and 1,000 years ago, the blood flowed in the Buddhist temples because Hindus, da, 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 da. So Sitaram Goel said, okay, can you name one case of this? I'm asking not 2 cases, just one. And so far we haven't heard of it. So no, you see, what Muslims did was not a honest revenge for what Hindus had done to Buddhists. That has nothing to do with it. On the contrary, Muslims did exactly the same to Buddhists as they had done to
Others.
non-Buddhist Hindus.
Yes.
And this again, not only in India, all of Central Asia, like the Bamyan Buddhas.
Yes.
So you see there again, Hindus may perfectly plead innocent.